All right, so we getting set up here. So try not to make a lot of noise.
Hey, come back.
Shh. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, everybody. We are live for the Latanya Moore Morning Show. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. You already know that we are live. That this is how we do it. You know, I have to get set up, got to get everything set up. I'm Latanya Moore. You know, we're talking about business. We're talking about protecting brands. Thank you guys so much. I see that there are people that are joining us already. Make sure that you like, comment, share. Today, we are actually going to be talking about 3 of the top 10 things that you should do before even writing your business plan. So I know that every time, you know, people are getting ready to start businesses and things like that, the very first thing they tell you is you need a business plan. I'm not saying that you don't. That's absolutely right. What I want to talk to you guys about today is what are some things that you should consider even before doing your business plan. And the reason there are a lot, let me just say that. When I actually counted, I hate to say this, but when I actually counted, there were roughly about 100 different considerations that you need to make before even doing the business plan. So that's deep. So again, thank you guys so much for joining. I'm so excited because yesterday's show was so fabulous. We got a lot of great feedback. And so now I've had the time to really hone in on some of the major things that you guys are asking for. I know that this is something that I go through with all of my clients who come to me and they want to start a business. So I'm giving you what I actually give my clients that come. So I'm really excited about having this opportunity to be here with you guys and talk about that. But again, today we're going to be talking about 3 of the top 10 things that you should do before writing your business plan. And if you see me looking to the side, listen, I got to have notes because I got to make sure that I'm going over the right stuff. Okay. So again, I'm Latanya Moore. Welcome. Thank you guys so much for joining me this morning. But one major thing, the first thing that we're going to talk about this morning is you have to decide how will you sustain yourself while you're building your business. That is absolutely crucial. It is absolutely key to making sure that when you do your business plan, again, this is before you get your business plan. So the reason that you have to think about how you're going to sustain, especially if you are saying, now I'm going to stop my day job and I'm going to do this business full time. So just to give you a typical scenario, I have typically two different scenarios that come and work with me. One is the person that has their side gig that they're trying to ratchet up to their main gig. So they already have their job. So that is one source of a way to sustain themselves. So, okay. So that's something that they're talking about. Hey, good morning, Carlos. Thank you for joining. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. So the very first thing, again, is decide how you will sustain yourself while you build your business. So why is that important? A lot of us have families. You should probably think about that. What is it that your family is going to do? Is this going to be some type of financial hit? And if so, how do you accommodate for that? So again, I'm throwing the questions out, and I hope that you guys take notes and answer those questions. Even if you've already started your business, even if you've already started your business plan, these are the things that you need to consider. These are the things that you really, really need to think about while you're doing your business. Because if any part of your life now has to be in jeopardy for you to do this business, the question is, are you ready? So again, tip number one, or consideration, question number one, how will you sustain while you're building your business? So think about it like this. This is what I tell people. Just quick story. So when I started my business, I had to change my lifestyle drastically. I mean, drastically. Like I literally had to, well, let me just say this. I sold things that when I things that I would say are accomplishments or whatever. I remember the more I saw things kind of go out the door, the more fearful I got. But then I had to keep asking myself, do I really need this right now? Because I really want my business to thrive. I really want it to grow. And so I had to really have a come to Jesus conversation with myself about, am I willing to let go of these material things, number one. Number two, at the time, I had locks. Hey, Dr. Stevenson, thanks for joining us. So I had locks, and I had to ask myself, do I want to continue to pay hundreds of dollars to, go to the loctician? Or am I willing to sacrifice going to the loctician, for example, and learning how to do it myself, or working with someone who could do it for me? That was really huge because, and I'm just using getting your hair done just as an example, but that was something that I had actually been doing since I was a very little girl, going to the beautician, getting my hair done. The only other time that I've ever had to kind of sacrifice that was in college. So it was a big thing for me to go from these things being a normal standard in my life to now being something that I had to sort of do myself. So, but again, the question you have to ask yourself is, what am I willing to cut? What am I willing to sacrifice? So another thing, getting my car detailed. Things like I never really got my nails done, but I certainly would get a pedicure. So, on a regular basis. So all of these things, I don't have a problem now. I do my own hair. I don't have a problem now with sacrificing these things because I've seen what a big payoff it is. But getting past that initial question, getting past that question of, am I willing to sacrifice? What am I willing to sacrifice that I can still sustain and live? Because what it comes down to is identifying what are your basic needs. Because again, this is exactly what I go through when I talk to business owners that say, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I share my real life story with them because being an entrepreneur is not easy. You're going to work a lot of long hours. And for those of you that have been in an industry where you worked long hours, I've had people say, oh yeah, that doesn't matter. I work long hours. But let me tell you something, not like this. Because you got to think, when you're working for someone else on an hourly wage, as long as you meet the minimum standard, you don't have to think about operations. You don't have to think about everything else, because even if you're not doing it yourself, you have somebody that's doing it. As the owner, you're responsible for the oversight. So all of these things come into play. Again, we're talking about 3 of the top 10 questions that you should ask yourself before you even start with your business plan here on the LaTanya Moore Morning Show. So again, decide how you will sustain. Ask yourself, answer the question, can you sustain your present lifestyle? See, that's what we're talking about. For me, I couldn't sustain my present lifestyle. I vacationed 3 times a year. Yeah, I had to cut all that out. I had certain, every 2-week appointments, not happening anymore. Now, I don't want to make this sound like gloom and doom, because for me, it was really awesome, not to really just take charge and take control of my day-to-day. However, when it came down to sustaining myself, my lifestyle took a very drastic turn. So I'm asking you as business owners, are you willing to make the cuts that you need to make so that you can sustain? Are you willing to identify areas where maybe you don't have to divert funds because you already have funds built in that you can utilize to fund your business? So for example, if you eat out a lot, let's say if you eat out 4 times a week, and when I say times, I mean based on like if you eat breakfast out 4 times a week or lunch, Are there some things that you can say, okay, instead of maybe spending, you know, I don't know, $8 or whatever every morning on breakfast, and I'm just using that as an example, instead of doing that, how much is that a month? So if we say Monday through Friday, there's an $8 breakfast, that's $40 a week. 4 times 4, 40 times 4, is $160 a month. That's the same $160 a month that you were spending on that morning breakfast. Divert that into your business. You haven't lost anything, you haven't spent anything, but you have made a lifestyle sacrifice. But the question again goes back to, are you willing to make this sacrifice? Is the business that you want, is being your own boss, is taking control and possibly building generational wealth really worth the sacrifice of not eating out for breakfast? Same thing with lunch. The typical lunch is going to cost you anywhere between $10 and $12 every single day. Let's do the math. At $10 a day, $50 a week, now we're talking $200 a month. Some people eat out for breakfast and lunch. So now we're talking roughly, let's say $20, a day, which is $100 a week. Now you have $400 that you can divert to your business. What am I saying? What I'm saying is you have to have that tough talk with yourself even before you start the business plan. Because when you start the business plan, you're going to be excited. You're going to see your business actually coming together and coming to fruition on paper. Bad if you don't answer these questions up front, because if you get into it and now you start to see like, oh my gosh, now that I'm doing this, man, I can't even eat out for breakfast. So that's why you have to have that conversation with yourself up front. So if you answered yes, I can sustain myself, I'm willing to make the cuts, all of that. So the question then becomes, what's your plan after that though? Because even if you say, okay, I can sustain myself for how long? Because remember, you need to know all of these things for business planning purposes. How long can you sustain yourself? Even if you make all the cuts that I'm talking about, even if you make a complete lifestyle change, even if you sell some valuable possessions, some of you may have some fur coats, some of you may have some things that, depending on where you live, you just may not need it. So you may be in a position where you do have some things, let's say, that you can sell and cut back and cut down on some lifestyle, some lifestyle things. But what happens after that? How do you account for that? What's going to be your sustaining factor once all of the money that you have put aside is now gone? That is a huge question. That is a huge consideration, because again, we're talking about a lifestyle change. We're talking about things that typically people don't like to do. We don't like to not have our nice things. For me, like I shared a little bit earlier, I just started seeing things just go out the door, 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 because I made the decision that living this entrepreneurial lifestyle was going to require a huge, huge sacrifice. It is not easy. I don't want to try to make you guys think it's easy, but that's why when I talk to people about protecting your brand, I mean, you guys see me post things all the time, but that's why I'm just saying this is the stuff that you just really need to know and you really need to consider. That's why I'm doing this live feed. Hey, this is an opportunity for you to ask your questions and really just get your questions answered, because I want you to be successful. I was there. I was the person who all the things that I'm telling you happened to me. I don't have a problem putting it out there. You may watch another post. I may be talking about some other things. The road has not been easy, but I really had to start with, what am I willing to sacrifice to sustain myself while I go into full-time entrepreneurship? The other question is, how will you prepare for any unforeseen catastrophe? We all know that life happens. We have seen situations where people, are driving down the road and unfortunately they may get hit by a drunk driver. People go through divorces. People go through health challenges. All of these things impact your ability to sustain yourself. It impacts your ability to operate your business. What I always tell my clients is this: always prepare for all those things that you hope will never happen. Because when you're in it, it's very difficult to separate. It's very difficult to make these rational decisions in irrational times. That is key. That is big. You guys know that I always say you must always have a plan. You got to have a living will. You need to have a system set in place. I tell people all the time, you need to have some type of power of attorney set up, so if something happens to you, the business can continue to flow. Who's going to run the business if something happens to you? You got to think about all this stuff before you do the business plan, because oftentimes that's not in the checklist. Oftentimes they don't tell you to critically think about, well, what would happen if? And again, this is a huge questionnaire. I mean, we don't have time to go over the entire thing, for this broadcast, but it is all the things that you need to think about. Like I said, it's about 100 of them, and we're only talking about 3 of the top 10 actually today. But that's a huge question. So again, we're talking about just in your personal life. What about the business? So let's think about this. What systems would you have, are you going to have in place? If, let's say, there's a fire, let's say that there is someone else that comes in and now they're your strongest competitor. How are you going to handle that? These are all things that people don't think about, right? What if you're in a situation where you're renting? Let's say that you've built, you're going to build this business. However, the property that you have is not a property that you own. What is your contingency plan if the owner decides that they're going to double the rent, right, at the end of your lease term? And that happens more often than not, especially when they see that you're growing and you're thriving. That happens more often than not. What are you going to do? For most people, it will be catastrophic. For most people, that would severely cut into the business. So the question then becomes, and the reason, let me back up, because the reason that you want to think about that particular scenario in particular is that these are things that you need to think about before you negotiate your lease. Now, again, that's a topic for a different story, but this is why I'm throwing out all of these things, because you have to think about that before you even negotiate the lease. You need to have it in your business plan. So, for example, if something happens to you, then whoever is responsible for operating the business while you're recuperating, while you're recovering, or whatever the situation is, they need to know how this is supposed to work. They need to know your goals about how you want the business to go. Very, very crucial, very, very key. Again, point number 1, decide how you will sustain yourself while you build your business. Point number 2, how will you prepare for any unforeseen business or personal catastrophe? And so in the time we have left, I want to talk about, you must decide very early. And I'm looking at my notes, guys, because I want to make sure that I get this right. Will you have a partner? And if you have a partner, what happens to your share if you can no longer be a viable part of the business? Very key before you even start the business plan, because you need to ask yourself, what do I want this business to accomplish in my overall life? Do I just want this to be something that is going to replace my day job? And so I'm not really looking at legacy building. I'm not thinking about transferring any generational wealth. I'm not thinking about doing any type of generational transfer of the business. That's a question you have to answer, because based on that, then you know how to deal with your partner. You know how to talk to your partner. This is something that you really need to think about. The big widespread impact that your business has, or your desire to be an entrepreneur has, on your personal and your business life. So then now bring another person into it. You guys are doing this together, right? Now what happens? You have to have this consideration, even if you don't have a partner. But if you have a partner, it is so crucial. I can't even express how crucial it is that you deal with this particular matter, that you really talk about what's going to happen. because most people that are in partnerships, and this is something that I stress for people to think about, have a mechanism where your family or whoever you want to leave your portion of the business to have a system in place of making sure that that can be carried out. And it's several things. Again, we're not going to get into all of those things today, but there are several things, that you can do to make sure that that happens. The second thing is that you really have to think about who owns what. So I'll give the example. I had a situation where I was working with someone that was going into a partnership. This particular person was producing products. The other person's job was to promote the product, help with getting customers and things of that nature. So there was a mutual mixing of money, but there was also a mutual mixing of sweat equity. So the question, of course, by the time they got to me, they had already made certain commitments. But the question out there was, at the end of the day, who really owns that product? Because you have a partner that's helping you in the business, but the actual physical ownership of this particular product, who owns it? Have you guys talked about it? Is it in your partnership agreement, the one that you don't have? How are you now? They're already operating. They were already operating without even talking about that particular scenario. And the reason that that's important is, again, we talked about catastrophe. We talked about sustaining things. If you own a product, there are some things that you can do to make sure that you're going to retain ownership of that product. Even if you don't want to do that, you may not want to sustain ownership of the product. It still needs to be addressed because, again, you have to think about business operations. You have to think of it. And again, you have to think about what's going to happen. What's my focus? What's my goal? At the end of the day, am I looking to just sustain and this is really like a job, so it's just replacing my income? Or is this something that I'm really looking to build a legacy with? Very, very vital, very, very key. I have been fortunate to not be in that type of scenario because anytime that I've collaborated with people and I've created products, we talk about this up front, and same thing with them. Okay, how is this going to go down? I always tell my clients, you must always consider what your goals are. I try not to be too forceful and too pushy because, quite honestly, I certainly want to tell my clients, you need to think about, listen, you did produce this product. You did. So because you produced this product, what's what? Because by giving up the ownership, for example, even a portion of the ownership, that person can do whatever they want to do with their portion of, let's say, the product royalties or even licensing the product. So many things go into that. I know today we're just talking about it, but we're talking about these intro things. We're talking about all the things that you really need to think about even before you get started. The other side of it is you need to also think about, well, what if the business goes as we want it to go? Now we bring in other people. How are we going to do that? Are we going to bring in other people in the sense of now they're going to be strategic partners? Are there going to be again, there are so many different scenarios when we talk about partnership. But again, you have to answer this question. You got to ask yourself, if I have a partner, how do I want this to look for me? And it is not being selfish. I really want you guys to know it is really not being selfish. It's really about understanding the things that you need to know as a business owner, the things that you need to do, the questions that you need to answer before you get the business plan done. And the reason is because you've answered those questions, when you do your business plan, you can take it to your CPA that you're going to work with. You can take it to your attorney that you're going to work with. You can take it to the Small Business Development Center if you're going to go there and do it by yourself. You can consider those things. You can take it to some consultant, for example, that sets up businesses. You can take all of these things to them. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nina. You can take this information to them so that when they do the business plan, all those considerations are there. It is your opportunity to do a lot of analytical thinking and a lot of critical thinking up front, but really just doing honestly, a self-analysis. What is it that you're looking at doing? I give you guys an example. So I see all the time on Facebook, I see people that promote products, right? They may have created, I don't know, like I saw a couple of times that people create all these really cool things, home decor. They create a lot of cool graphics. They create all these different things. And then on the back end, I'll see someone else that talks about how now, I put my, I don't know, my wreath or whatever on Facebook. This is my signature design. Now somebody in, Colorado is doing the same thing that I'm doing. The question becomes, have you in your own business protected the local side of it? Because again, I'm using that as an example, but it's not just when you put it out to the public. It's really about thinking up front. What are the things that you need to do to protect your business up front, to protect your interests? And I really want to stress that, because oftentimes, we're touchy-feely. We're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to come off as mean, especially women. I don't want to come off as mean, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but this is business. This is business. Or is it a hobby? Now, if it's a hobby, then you can keep doing that. I want to talk to the people that are serious about making sure that they are ready to even do the business plan. Because again, all of these considerations, if you're 5-6 months in, now you can go back to your plan. Now you can go back to your written document. You can go back to your guide that tells you what you want to do in this situation, because you thought about it up front. You've worked with your consultant, or you just thought about it yourself. Listen, for people that are not going to do like investments and things like that, you can just have a regular old plan where you just literally write this stuff down. But the point is, you want to have it written down. You want to have it in a place. You want to have all of your systems in place. These, again, we're just talking about 3 of the top 3 things today. Thank you so much. I want to leave everyone with one piece of advice. If you didn't listen to anything else, if you did not listen to anything else, if you don't grasp anything else from this particular video, this is what I want you to grasp. I want you to grasp that you really have to think about what you want your business to be and how it impacts your personal life before you even start the business plan. That's the latest tip. That's the overall. I want you to think about all of these considerations. Thank you, Charmaine. I want you to think about all of these considerations. It is vital, absolutely key. So thank you guys so much. For those of you that are going to be listening to this on the replay, for those of you that are watching live, please, you can post your questions in the comments. I will be monitoring those throughout the day. I will be responding to questions. You can check me out, latanyamore.com. You'll see all the things that we're working on, all the things that we are doing. Again, if you have any questions, you can also inbox me a private question if you don't want to post it here on Facebook. We are here. I am here Monday through Friday from 9 to 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. I want you to join me. Have your questions ready. Please feel free to share with your network. Please feel free to comment. And again, thank you so much for joining me here on the Latanya Moore morning show. And we will be right back tomorrow again with another show. And so tomorrow we're going to be talking about another 3 tips. Again, today we talked about the first 3. Now we're going to be talking about the second 3. So thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to your questions.